All right. Here we are. Today we are talking about leading and hiring a rock star team. I was going to make a joke, Jessica, right off the bat. And I was like, we're talking about leading and hiring a rock star team. So therefore, I brought in one of my lowest performers.
Just diving right into it.
Yes. No, this is something that you have become, I think, incredibly passionate about. I think because you've had working for somebody who is self employed, working in a corporate setting, you've seen behind the scenes of or you and I both have seen behind the scenes of many businesses. And yeah, we've also supported founders and their people. And we have a very unique kind of perspective because founders or business owners have different kind of quote unquote pressures or roles or things that they're managing. And so do their what they would call number twos or integrators or kind of like, their team. So we're going to kind of co-create this conversation today.
All right.
So just give a little background, Jessica, on how you came into my world. I know we've told this story many, many times, but we have to remember not everybody listens to us all the time. So for people who are like, who is this Jessica Catherwood and why is Heather talking to her?
Our love
How
story.
did you?
You want me to tell our
Yeah,
love
yeah.
story?
And the nutshell version
Great.
of our love story.
So we had met through a friend years ago. We live local to each other, and I remember always being like very fascinated by your energy. Like I couldn't in that earlier iteration of myself couldn't really put my finger on what it was that attracted me, but there was definitely something I was super curious. And Heather will always say I'm her longest project, but it was a slow burn. Anyway, I got invited to one of your speaking things and I had reached out to you and said, I was kind of curious about working with you. So you invited me to a one-day thing in Windsor and I came to that. And I remember at the end, I remember sitting there watching it because in my corporate job, I had done some event stuff for our social committee. And I remember sitting there watching it and just thinking, like, wow, I think I could actually help her do things a little, make her life easier. And I remember just saying to you at the end, like, if you ever want help with running events, I would be so happy to help you. And you're like, it's yours. Like, take it. So then we did our first retreat together, which was just 5 years ago, like April. Like I just got the thing on Facebook. It's our 5 year anniversary.
Wow.
We have a lot of anniversaries. Yeah, and it just kind of grew from there. And then in 2021, you were like, I know, I've noticed that you're good with people. Are you interested in trying sales calls? And I was like, okay, sure. And then in 2022, your business kind of realigned and you needed that people person in your business. And
Mhm.
you're like, all right, time to pull up your big girl panties, time to leave your corporate, which is something I had told you I wanted to do anyways. And here we are.
Yeah. I always find it fascinating because I do remember the first time we met.
Mhm.
I have a different version of that story because I think you were trying to people please me, but I
Mhm.
was training for a marathon
Yes.
and you were like, "Oh, I would be interested in running a marathon." So then I'm like, "She said it. I'm going to get her to do one." Still haven't been able to get you to do one,
Yeah.
but you admit now that you just said that because you were like trying to get on my
A
good side.
little bit of that, yes. I still like, I'm not gonna lie to you, that still sometimes like comes into my head, but I push it out real quick. So yes.
It
It was
will. It will. Don't worry. I got a vision board for you and it is on
it's like
there.
it was like 70% people pleasing, 30% general curiosity.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So, another thing I want to say from like a team perspective is cuz you didn't talk about like the whole Starbucks thing.
correct.
And I don't think you realize how important that is, but I honestly I feel like that's just part of who you are, which is why you don't know you do those things.
Right.
So, one of the things I was very attracted to Jessica for, like I probably met you maybe two times, one to two
Yep.
times before that in-person
Yep.
event. And and then we started talking like in my DMs and you were like curious and I would have said there was like so many red flags, but you were curious but terrified, which is honestly how most people approach me, which is annoying to me because you see me on the other side now and you know that I'm just this little kitten. right? Maybe I have like a big roar, but I'm a little tiny, little scared kitten. I just want to save the world, but I'm like highly sensitive and I love people, but don't come too close to me. So that's kind of like true, but not true. But, anyways, so I'm putting on this event and Jessica's there. I get her in the room. I know that she sees something in me that is also available within her because we usually are inspired by people that have something that we have, but we just don't know how to access it, right? We're triggered or inspired by people. So she gets in the room. She's like, planting seeds. Um, and then it was on like day 2 of the event. She texts me on my phone and says, I'm on my way to your event. Would you like a Starbucks? And I just thought, like, it was our first little, like, I feel supported by this potential stranger who is like, I see that I can help you here. And that to me was like the first little spark of not having to ask somebody. Like, this is a huge, it doesn't matter if you are a founder or you are somebody who supports a business owner, like thinking ahead. And that can, like, it takes decision fatigue away from people. Like, when you can see what the problems are going to be and you're removing those barriers for them, you may never feel appreciated, but that is just like, that's my love language. You know that now.
It's funny because I didn't know that story until we were on our way to maybe like our second or third retreat. I can't remember. We were driving up, we were on the 401, and you told that story to somebody else. And I was shocked because I did not even know that was like that had brought you so much joy.
It doesn't take much to please
It
me.
was like the very beginnings of Tiny Backpack.
Yeah. We will talk about Tiny
Yes, we
Backpack
will.
in a second.
Revolutionary.
So,
Tiny Back.
what?
Revolutionary. It's like a team. It's important.
Okay. Anyone listening to this, I believe like the first time I hired like my first contractor that was like a few hours a month, right? They're not an employee. You get so emotionally uncomfortable because it's like new level, new devil, right? So anytime you are in a relationship from like with anyone, doesn't matter if it's in your business, on a team, in corporate, in your intimate personal lives, I don't know why culturally we believe that like team is has nothing to do with relationships. But what I often see is women rescuing or projecting other like toxic behaviors that they have at home on their team. And I would say you and I have grown a lot over the last 5 years. And it has been one of the most challenging things I've ever experienced in my life, trying to grow a business while also, for me, trusting my team. Because most visionaries or business owners, their actual bottleneck or saboteur shadow side is that we have trust issues and we're hyper independent, which is why we go out and do our own thing in the world. But you have to heal that part of yourself in order to build a team that you trust.
I would agree.
So why don't you tell, I don't want to say your side of the story with that, but when it comes to trust and how to build trust.
I think it has gone both ways, right? Like I think that I think that we have a bit of a unique relationship, and I always say it's a blessing and a curse because I think we knew each other socially before and we genuinely have like a friendship. So I think that is, like I said, a blessing and a curse, right? The blessing part is you're probably not going to find anybody more loyal, right? That wants to see you and your business succeed because I genuinely care. But it is a curse because your friendship feelings get in the way. I mean, even yesterday, I was like, I didn't want to tell you something uncomfortable. And you're like, I hate when you don't tell me things. And I've had to like sit back and look at like, I can't do that just because I'm uncomfortable if it's something you genuinely need to know. So it's like over time, we've built up that trust where I can also say to you, like, hey, I noticed that this is happening. Let me take that from you. But I think it also requires from a team a little bit of understanding, right? Because when you started this business, it was just you. So you get in those like processes of doing everything on your own and you have a very strong vision of how you want it to be. So for me, it was like, how do I learn for the first, like I would say our full-time relationship, I would break it into some chunks. And I feel like when I first started with you full time, I felt like it was a lot of learning. And I felt like I asked you 1.3 million questions. And that feels like it was probably a little bit of heavy backpack moment, but
Mm-hmm.
necessarily evil, right? Because I feel like for me, that's how I learn, is by just making sure I understand things. And then we got into a phase where it was like, okay, now I need to grow. It wasn't, it's like that phase when you cut bangs and you have to like grow them out. It's not pretty. It's not good for anybody, but we went through it. We grew together. And now I think we're in the best phase ever. Like I would say that our relationship is probably one of the most rewarding ones because I feel like we work really well together.
You have no idea how I'm trying to be so professional. There's so many times where we've grown too, because you and I both use humor.
Yes.
And I put little, like, three little
I
checks
was
on my
just going to
paper.
ask you if you
I'm so
did
proud.
that. I remember you
I'm
saying
so
that
proud
to
of
me. I am
myself.
proud of
I'm
you.
so proud of myself. Um, the blessing and the curse,
Yeah.
yes, which is the friendship. We do have like a good hearty team now, and I would say everyone works pretty well together.
Yes.
In the past, we've brought one or two people on that were not
Yeah.
aligned with the culture.
Yes.
And the interesting part about that is it's very quickly apparent. Like, this is the beauty of having a team that feels
Mhm.
solid, is that like everyone works together. What I have learned over time, and I would say it's still a challenge for me, is like the trust piece.
Mhm.
That's going to be ongoing because it's a relationship, and relationships are fluid. But let's talk about like leadership skills.
Okay.
When you talk about like phases of, like, first of all, you bring somebody on right out of the gate. I mean, yes, we had a friendship, but almost when we became friends, we almost started working together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were friends for like 10
Right.
years and then decided to do this. So we've always had a working slash like friendship.
Yes.
Now, is there boundaries there? 100%. Like, we actually don't see each other in public a lot. Like, in person, we're always virtual, but we do have like our designated business conversations and then personal conversations. Like, we text you if it's personal, we do WhatsApp if it's business. And so there's boundaries there, but communication is key. Like, I mean, communication is my love language. I'm like, over communicate, right? So the thing that happened yesterday, I'm like, if you didn't tell me that, I would be annoyed. It's like that dance of knowing when not to tell me, but knowing you're going to tell me something is going to trigger me. And you just don't want to hurt my feet, or you don't, you don't want to disrupt my
I
energy.
think what I have learned, if I was going to give a tip, and where this is where when I think of the phases, I feel like the first version of me, let's call her 1.0, Bang's version is 2.0, now we're in 3.0. 1.0 me would have just dumped that on you and let it and been like uncomfortable, and you would have been uncomfortable. We both would have been triggered. It would have been a hot mess. 2.0, I
I
don't
call
even
that emotional
correct.
puking.
I don't even know what 2.0 would have done. She was worse than 1.0, so that was a hiccup in the road. But what I think I have learned from observing how you work and how you function is I came to you and I said, but here's like the context and how I handled it. And it's like learning to not just as somebody who supports the visionary, it's like come with a solution. It may not be the final answer to everything. I almost said final solution, but that's a Holocaust thing and super inappropriate. But I said it anyway.
You you read way too many
I was reading
books.
one
But
this
anyways,
morning.
go
That's
ahead.
why that happened. Um, anyway, coming to you with like a solution to it or thoughts around it, or like I process it first and then I
Yeah.
bring it to you. And I think that that has been so helpful in our relationship because I manage my own stuff before I just show up and expect you to do it for me. I think there was a long time where I just let you do it for me, and that is exhausting. I can't even imagine
Mhm.
like being on the receiving end of it, not from you, but from other people. I see it more now. Like as I've grown, I'm able to like remove layers and see different things. And
Mhm.
it feels better to approach you that
So,
way.
yes, and I will say that is like a direct reflection of like what we teach, like
Yes.
in the programs. Like I would say the unfair advantage of leadership working in my business is that this is what we teach. So part of the culture is you will become so emotionally uncomfortable, you will have to grow.
Mhm.
It's like you either grow or you leave, right?
Yeah.
So you rose to the occasion and you learn these skills. I will say, as a leader, and we've had these conversations of like the version of me today versus the version of me 4 years ago, it may not have been aligned.
Yes.
But the skills I have had to learn and acquire are, and this is like a recent one that I'm really trying to embody, is when someone asks me a question, and I think this is, I don't want to stereotype women in general, but we're so nurturing and like I am, I mean, I'm a bleeding heart, so I have to be mindful of that. So I can't over nurture and I just really care about people. And so sometimes my shadow side is I care more than the actual person and I'm carrying their luggage for them.
Mhm.
So I cannot rescue other people. And so my go to, even if I know the answer, and this is like a tip for founders, is pretend you don't know the answer. So you have to show up and be like, well, this is what I would do. Just say, what would you do? Like you have to show up in that coach energy. And that I think is a value and something that we've instilled in the culture. One, we expect it from our clients, our mentors, really encouraging that we are here to co-create, but like we are all individual experts. And so if I can show up and be like, I have a solution, but I actually trust that you can solve this problem better than me, or you have like better ideas. So you tell me, we call it a first shitty pancake. You tell me your first shitty pancake, you give me your first shitty
Mhm.
draft, and then we can co-create this experience together. And it helps you get out of perfection of like, she just expects crap from, not crap, but she
Yeah.
expects me to use my brain. Like my brain is valuable here. I'm going to give her a first shitty draft, doesn't need to be perfect, and then we can co-create this together.
I think from my perspective, that approach actually serves a few benefits. One, I think it helps with like emotional buy-in to the business, to be honest with you, because when I come with like a first shitty pancake and then we co-create, I feel more ownership in what we're doing, right? I don't feel like I'm just here performing a task. It doesn't feel transactional, it feels relational. And I think for me that really helps like for again for me because I am a relationships are important to me. It helps me feel appreciated, seen, heard, all things that have been issues in previous places with previous leaders. um and then it also helps me feel more empowered too, because it's like, and we've had that conversation around, sometimes I think visionaries think it's easier, I'll just do it myself, I'll just give them the answer, but that's not sustainable long term. And that's where Tiny Backpack kind of evolved from. Is it was just like we had that conversation where you're like, this is what I need from you, I need you to rise to this occasion so that you are the expert in this and you and I are just like putting the polishing touches on things. But for me, it has made me feel, I think that has been the biggest turning point in my journey. Is like, I would say it was end of last year we had this conversation. I can't remember exactly when it was, but it has just pushed me into this like new orbit of myself where I feel super empowered about things. And I actually don't even take things as personally. Like if I come to you with something, you're like, I fucking hate that, I don't want to use it. It doesn't feel personal because there's so many other places where it's like, I think before I was always so worried I was going to disappoint you. But because we've been
Mm-hmm.
through this pancake process so many times, I don't get offended when my version of the pancake isn't the final one, if that makes sense. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
I feel so empowered, and we've built enough trust up in the relationship that I don't feel offended. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the way that we're going to do things. Like, great. This is what's best for the team, the business. Cool, let's go. And I've had to let go of a lot of things where it normally would have triggered me because it's not about me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. There's so many. I know people are just picking up so many gems from this conversation.
Yeah.
I can go in so many directions. Um, One, on the other side, I've had to learn how to give constructive feedback, like, and not be like, nope, I don't like this. Let's move on. Like, I just, considering, okay, she actually put thought and effort into this. Like, you not liking it, that might disappoint her. But then at the same time, I can't care too much about how you take my feedback because that is a woman's issue. And I can't stay stuck in like centering my words and how I talk because you can't quote unquote handle it. So it's like, how can you, I tell people all the time, how do you want to feel? You want to feel connected and respected. How can you say, like, that's actually amazing? It's a little bit different than the vision I had in mind. So, like, let me take a look at it and then I'll get back to you. Like, there's ways you can communicate to people without feeling like you're just like, that was shit. How dare you? Let's talk about this tiny backpack because we keep talking about it. And every time you tell this to a client, they're like, what's tiny backpack? I don't even remember how this started. It was probably me being like, here's a visual for
I
you.
can I
Like,
can
what
tell you
happened? Do
how
you
that
remember this?
started. So it was the beginning of this year, I think. It was around this like the sales portion of the business. And you know, lead generation is always that monkey on your back that you will, it's essentially a conjoined twin at this point. Like you're not getting rid of it. But
No, I'm co-creating my life with it. I'm going to get another tattoo.
100%, you're going to get it a little hat, a little how you want to feel hat, put
Hmm.
your own merch on it. Um,
Yeah.
but essentially you were just like I am tired. I am tired of carrying the load for this. And because you do your weird endurance shit, it gave us like I think I don't remember if it was you or me came up with a visual of you like hiking up those stupid fucking mountains with a heavy ass backpack. And where it came from is you're like, I'm tired of carrying this. And you're like, I need you to help me carry this load. And for me, like visually, it kind of made me think of me going and like taking rocks out of your backpack and putting them in my own. And it's like we're distributing the load where it needs to be, you know. And some days you do have the heavy backpack, and some days I have. But the goal, I think, where we came to with this is both of us show up trying to give the other one tiny backpack, which sometimes when I think about it, creates a very funny visual of us like pulling rocks out of each other's backpacks and like wrestling on a hill. It's a little ridiculous. But that's
Got mine right here.
your tiny backpack that I bought you in Mexico.
If anyone can see this, I don't know where they would see it, maybe on YouTube or Instagram. There's a little tiny ass backpack
Correct.
and I put it on so when we're having meetings and I feel like feeling frisky. And Jessica, I also have gold stars. You should keep gold stars in your desk. Know your person's love language. Pull out the gold stars for
The ones that
Jessica.
I ordered on Amazon and mailed to your house for my own
Yes.
validation.
Yep, because I'm too cheap. And then I put on the little backpack and I'm like, good job. Good job. Tiny backpack.
Nothing brings me more joy. But where I feel that Tiny Backpack has been revolutionary is I feel like for me, like it was just like a light came on and I was like, that applies to everywhere in my life. If a friend is not giving me Tiny Backpack energy, first I think you have to share it with them. I don't think it's fair to just assume somebody knows how to lighten your emotional load or how they're contributing to it being heavier. And we've had a lot of those conversations. Some of them went over well, some of them didn't. But I think we've gotten to a phase now where, like, every time we come out of a conversation, I feel like we are like steps ahead of where we were before. But
Mhm.
I apply it to friendships. I apply it to my relationship with my parents. I apply it to anything I'm doing. If this is not life enhancing for me, not interested. Like I just don't have the time and energy for it if it's not making my life easier. And I feel like when we went to Mexico this year for our third year in Tulum, I feel like when we were thinking about like what our words are or whatever, I feel like I'm in this season of like peace. Like that is like my core desired feeling right now is just ease and peace. And I think it's from Tiny Backpack.
I I mean, it's a really good visual. And for anyone listening, if they're like, what the hell is this? Like when you have a team meeting, doesn't matter if you have like a brick and mortar, if it's just you're virtual with people, like have a visual bag and put, even if it's just little pieces of paper, like this literally goes back to the workshops I used to teach kids, where it's like, what are you carrying? It's all invisible, right? So if you write down everything that you are thinking about as a founder, as a business owner, and then ask your team. But this means vulnerability. So when you talk about, like, because I wrote down on the show notes, like brave leadership, so many people, they'll say, oh, we need help with our culture. Oh, we need processes. We need systems. We need this. We need SOPs. And I'm like, all of those are logical. Culture equals relationships. If you suck at relationships, you're going to have culture problems. And honestly, some people should not be in certain seats.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're like, I needed help with, like, there's somebody on our team and she's like, I never want to be client facing. Like, I will be a taskmaster. I will help you run all of this stuff, but never, ever, ever make me talk to a client. Like, do not put me in that seat. And it's like, you just have to know people's strengths, but you have to talk to them and ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this requires the leader to get emotionally uncomfortable. When I'm sitting in groups of people who, it doesn't matter if you're making $100,000, $100 million in a company, it's, the bigger it gets, the more people challenges you have. And it comes back to you and how you lead, how you're communicating. Like, yes, there's systems, there's processes, there's all these things, but it's always a people issue. And it is fascinating to me how this, like, ego, if you are a founder and you're like, I'm going to show the world, I'm going to do all these things, but you don't have your ego in check, like, your team is not going to like you. And you have high turnover. We don't really have high turnover. Like, people stick around on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they do that is because I'm like, what do you need? What do you want? What motivates you? How can I be of service to you? And I've realized that as the company grows, when it was just me and a few handful of one-on-one clients or these kids that I was teaching meditation to, it was just me and them. It was me and the client. And then it grew and grew and grew. And I'm like, oh, now my quote unquote clients are my team. It's my responsibility to lead the team, which is just empowerment. So if I am not empowered as a founder, as a leader, I sure in the hell am going to be puking that onto the team. And so part of my KPI, key performance indicator, part of my role is not just, being seen and interviews and all of that. Like, there's so many things I do, but it's managing my energy, my mental, physical, emotional, spiritual energy. And when I am not on my game, which there's always aspects of my life that are driving me nuts. But if I want to go to the next level, I have to, like, reinvest in my energy. And that is the number one thing that I see people sabotaging all the time. They think, oh, I'm just going to hire another team member, marketing person. I'm just going to get some SOPs in place. I'm just going to get more systems and processes. And I'm like, that's never going to solve your people issue.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think for me, I was thinking about this while you're talking. I almost feel like, as like a, I don't know if I would call myself your number two, because I feel like we have another, like, I feel like her and I are very similar, just different veins. But it's almost like running a business within your business, right? Like, the clients and the community is like my business within your business, right? So it's like, I have to show up and challenge myself. Like, how do I want to lead in this position? And we've had conversations about, like, it's very clear to you when I don't want to do something, and you're like, let's just offboard it. Like, don't try to force a square peg in a round hole. Let's just, and it's like, I feel like we've had so many honest conversations, again, some that went well, some that maybe could have gone better. But I feel like it's just like, what I think I respect about you is that you show up imperfectly and you just want to figure it out and move forward, and that you're open to hearing it from me. I would say, as a support person, one of the things I respect the most about you is that I can challenge you and that I can push back. And when you are, sometimes when I take something out of your backpack, sometimes you try to wrestle it out of my hands, and you have created a culture where I feel confident enough to be put my hand up and be like, no, you cannot have this rock back for your backpack. It needs to go in mine. And that's not easy, I think, for everybody in a supporting position, because I think sometimes there's that like thought in the back of your head, like, well, it's her business. She needs to do it her way. Like, I'm just here to support her. But giving into that when I know the right thing to do is to push back on you. And it does not always mean that my way is the right way. But
Mhm.
that pushback, I think, is a skill we've really built together. That like comfort for me to stand up and say, no, this is not serving you. Let it go.
Mhm. And it's interesting that you say that because sometimes I think you think I should not do something. And then I'm like 100% certainty I don't agree with you. But this, and I don't even think there's a right or wrong there. The point I'm trying to make is it comes back to managing my energy. And part of that is deep self
Mm-hmm.
trust. There have been times in the business where a slight pivot has had to happen and nobody agreed with me because you're all rule followers. And I'm like, this is happening. I will take the risk. If I fucked up, the risk is on me. Please let me try this for 90 days. I'll worry about it. And usually it works out. But sometimes, like, this is where I'm like, if I don't have 100% certainty and I make a decision and people don't agree with me, it's usually because I was running back towards my comfort zone. So, this again, I'm just coming back from like the founder, business owner position that if you are not kind of like don't want to grow as a person, like personally, it's really going to show in your business. And so sometimes like you just need to be honest with yourself. Do I want to continue to grow and invest as a human, or do I just want to sell it, or do I want to keep it small?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people sabotage themselves because as you grow, it is a relational thing with your people. So now let's talk about people who are like, well, this is great. You guys seem like you have a great relationship and good communication skills. And, we're meeting every single day, most of the time, like during the
Mm-hmm.
week. So just to like, okay, what are you working on? Where are you at? What do you need from me? But there's people who have contractors or employees. I also know sometimes we look behind the scenes, like if we're to a fractional founder and working with people one-on-one, like I'll work with the founder and then sometimes their team comes into our program or the
Mm-hmm.
program, and we're like investing in and teaching their team. But I can see, I'm like, okay, your vision is like you want to grow this company, right? But the people you have and the seats that they're in, that team is not going to get you there. And so sometimes the actual sabotage is the people are holding them back because they're either not hiring more people to get them there or they're hanging on to people that are not willing to grow. So, what do you say to those people that are just like, I'm stuck. I'm not moving. Cuz you're like Jessica, you're talking about how you started to take ownership for your role and you treat it like a business. Like I could have beat you over the head and been like boom, and if you were like I don't want to grow, Heather, this is not me. I'm over here. What do you say to that person that's like, well, I'm trying. When do I let go? This is like a relationship thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? How long do I try versus when do I let go and move on? Like they're not the right fit.
I mean, we've had a couple of those moments. I remember the first time I took a month off my corporate job and worked with you, and this was before the pandemic. And that's why I was laughing when you were saying pivoting earlier, because I remember I was so rigid when I started working with you. And I remember sitting in your kitchen and you're like, if you don't learn to pivot and be more flexible, you will not survive here. I very distinctly remember that. And I remember having that conversation again not that long ago where you're like, if you are not gonna, this was when I was in my that not so great emotional bangs era, and you were like, if you don't pull your shit together, This is not going to work. And that was so hard to hear. But for me and the way I operate, I needed to hear that because you essentially held a big old mirror up to what I was doing. And it showed me that I was letting fear and insecurity and all those bullshit stories rule how I was showing up for you. And that did not feel good.
I have lots of things I'd like to say about that. One thing is I've noticed as a founder, and this is like a quick tip and probably not for you specifically, when people are a contractor and you are hiring them. So I took you from corporate.
Mm-hmm.
That is a whole identity shift. Going from
Yes.
a corporate employee to now working for an entrepreneur is a whole identity shift. And I don't know if I would do that again. Um,
That's fair. You, I
I'm
mean,
half joking.
you hit the
I'm
jackpot.
half
You hit the
joking.
jackpot here, but I don't blame you. To be honest with you, when I look back on our journey, I don't blame you for saying that because I think
Mhm.
if you, I, to be honest with you, think if this version of you had met that version of me, we wouldn't be here today.
Correct. But I would say when you say I hit the jackpot, like I actually, because we had that relationship and you were coachable ish,
That's fair.
that's coachable.
That is fair.
That is resistantly coachable. You are coachable. I would say now you're more coachable. So it's all downhill from here, which means it's easy. Like the boulder is going downhill. I just heard someone yesterday say, is it uphill from here or downhill? They're like, well, downhill because you're moving the boulder and you're gaining momentum.
Yeah, but uphill because I feel like we're climbing and getting better.
But
Yeah.
uphill sucks is when your calves start to
Yeah, but
burn
then you
and
get
you
to the
run out of breath.
summit and like the view that you're chasing.
And then it's a false fucking summit. And then you realize you got to get back in the gondola and go
If
back
that's
down.
not a visualization of small business, I don't know what is.
Exactly. Yeah. Start a business.
What's the
You know,
problem?
all this get rich quick scheme bullshit that you see online. Anywho, what I wanted to, I don't even know where I was going with that point. Oh, the identity shift from taking somebody from employee, like 9 to 5 or whatever you're working, versus whether you're a contractor. One, I know people are going to get this from many different angles, but number one, if you were deciding to start a business or be a contractor in any kind, your whole identity will shift. You have to take more radical responsibility because now you're representative of yourself rather than a company that most likely you have protection from.
100%.
Because I can hire a contractor, and if I'm like, oh, this is not aligned, like you're good to go, right? And I can find somebody else. So that was like the biggest shift. I don't even remember what I was trying to say about
You're
that.
talking about
About
I'm a jackpot and you wouldn't take someone from corporate again.
no, that's like rescuing a dog from the shelter. It was not
I
like,
have that,
and trying to
I
domesticate
think I have
them.
that card up somewhere where you wrote that on a card.
It's just a journey, and
100%.
people think everything is fucking easy. And I will tell any founder that identifies as a rescuer, when you see the potential in people, you have to be incredibly mindful. Do they want to see this potential in themselves? So when you are running a business, and this is not about you, Jessica, but when you're running a business, the whole point of hiring people to help you is to buy back your time and energy. There is a moment where you will feel like, okay, they're actually taking more time for me or more energy because I have to get them trained and all of that stuff. But this is like a dating process. I encourage founders to challenge people a little bit and just see how they deal with it rather than spoon feeding people. Um, because most of the time it's just insecurity and confidence. So if you're like, you got this, you're doing great. Like, that's what I tell people all the time. Like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I really appreciate you showing up. I really appreciate like how responsive you are. And I notice that they appreciate those little things. I'm like, I don't actually care how amazing your work is. I'm like, I care how you lead as a person. And so I think if you are bringing awareness to that to other people, it can make a big impact. Like even in your business now, if you're like, you know what, I actually don't appreciate my team at all. Like a little text message can go a long way to be like, I just want you to know I can tell how hard you've been working lately. Done. That can make the biggest impact in someone's life.
100%. I would say if I was going to like reflect back on our journey, I would say like the best tips that I would offer to somebody, especially somebody in a number two, is I know communication, over communication is your love language, but as I've seen it in all sorts of relationships, relationship with clients, relationships with other clients that I have, relationships with friends, it's like under communication is such a chronic problem because in your mind, like, and this is just human nature, right? You process from your own experiences, life, thoughts. So it's like I could say blue to you and you're thinking navy green and I'm thinking baby blue. And it's like
Yep.
it's something that you think would be so simple, but it's like if I just say that, it's not clear to you. So I feel like that's one of the best things is yes, I know it scratches your itch personally, but it's like I think that that is so helpful. Over
Mhm.
communicating, asking clarifying questions, not being afraid to say, you know what, I actually don't think I fully understand. Can I just ask you a few more questions? Because at the end of the day, it saves so much time and energy. And also work like challenging your own stories, which is I think one of the best things that you teach in the community, that it's like you are causing your own fucking problems.
Yeah, I just saw something this morning on Instagram about it was a founder and somebody that I highly respect and she was like, "Guys, you talk a good game and you don't take enough action." And I think as humans, we way overcomplicate things. And because I'm just going to say the female brain, because it's kind of, inside it looks like spaghetti and the male brain is very like primal. We can quote unquote multitask, but it's not healthy to multitask. So I think that is also a negative when it comes to like, I think women can build amazing businesses, but part of what I teach people is do less better and communicate. Like, it's not that fucking hard, but people don't do it because they're so living so fast in their mind that they didn't stop to have any empathy to say, huh, we just hired this person yesterday. And today I'm expecting them to be like they've been here for a year. Maybe they have some questions. Maybe I can just hold space for them and say, how are you feeling? And they're like, you know what? I'm really scared that I'm going to disappoint you. Like you need to be able to create those safe spaces. People want to work with you. You need to know why people like what their goals are, what their motivation is, what do they want to get out of the experience.
I think people don't
Yeah,
do that for themselves either, to be honest with you.
right.
People
Yeah.
expect themselves to function like they've been running a multi-million dollar business for 10 years and they're in their first 3 months. People don't stop and give themselves empathy. People don't stop and ask themselves, what do you really want? And I think that's what I love so much. Like, that's, I think, one of the things that you have taught me is to just be crystal clear on how I want to feel and what I want to create in my life. And it's like, I think has allowed me to get rid of a lot of crap that was not making me feel great and step into things that make me feel amazing. Like, I don't know how many people I've said this to. I've never felt better, like on the inside. I've never felt more empowered. I've never felt more fulfilled. I've never felt more at peace or more confident in myself. And I think it's just been like you letting me kind of step into this role, but like supporting me too, right? Like it wasn't, you were just, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just like push me off the deep end and expect me to figure it out. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes, and we've seen huge growth in companies or like small businesses or whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
when they do invest in their
Yeah.
people. Like we have people that come into the community, their founders are either in the community as well, or we're just supporting their quote unquote staff or team,
Mm-hmm.
and they notice how it makes an impact in their personal lives, which I would say is the tiny backpack, right? Like as a founder, if you're investing in yourself, I'm like, I feel lighter. Like I didn't have to worry about this problem. So it's just fascinating to watch that we think it's doing more. It's having more processes, having more systems, when in reality it's like what do you want? Like, how many times have I asked you to do a wouldn't it be nice
Mhm,
list? And I'm like, oh, these are all your challenges? Okay. Like, I would have assumed your challenges were completely different
mhm,
than in the ones I was telling myself in my head.
mhm,
Okay. To wrap this up, what would you say? I mean, the culture for everyone is going to be different,
mhm,
but as a quote unquote employee or contractor, someone on team member,
mhm.
if like tips, tricks, if a team member is listening to this, what habits would you tell them to acquire in order to feel like they're appreciated on the team, like they're growing, if they want to?
I think sometimes this is counterintuitive to people, but it's like it's that whole like if you're on an airplane it's going down, you have to put your mask on first. I think that because over the last 6 months or a year, I've really taken the time to invest in my own health, my own energy. Like I'm doing things that bring me peace and joy. That just brings me to like a better, more stable place for me to be able to support you. Like when I'm a shit show, I how do I expect myself to show up for you if I am a complete train wreck on the inside? Like I think that has been the biggest shift. Is that it sounds counterintuitive because when you're working for somebody, you're kind of like in a service position where you're providing a service or support or whatever. But it's like if you don't take care of yourself first, I am never going to be able to support you fully in the way that is right for you because it's like your vision is so clouded with your own crap, you can't see
Mm-hmm.
clearly how to do the things that you need to do properly. So I would say that's probably the biggest one. And just like asking questions and not being afraid. Like if somebody has hired you, there is a reason. They see something in you, you have a skill, and it's just like you don't have to show up perfect every time. Sometimes your expectations are your worst enemy because my expectations come from my experience. That may not be what you're looking for. So showing up and having expectations and this like cemented vision of what you're going to do for somebody, like learning to be more fluid, learning to pivot. I always have that like flash from friends where he's like, pivot.
Yeah.
Um, every time you say pivot, that's what happens in my brain. Is just like it's going to be okay. You're here for a reason. You're doing what you're doing for a reason. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be okay. You'll figure it out. And just like some people are data people, I was thinking about this morning too. And like, how did I step into this version of myself? It's like we had so many wins together over the years, and I look at all the things I've done really, really well, and I'm like, look at the difference that you've made for people. It's like that's why you're here. That's why you're still doing this because you are. And not everything is going to be a home run. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's I mean you just described energetic time management, which is why I will sing about it to the rooftops. Like I can feel when you are not living in alignment with how you want to feel. You can feel it on me when I'm not living in alignment with how I want to feel. So it still blows my mind that people are like, well, if I take care of myself, that's selfish. And I'm like, actually, it's costing you a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of energy. You and I have both seen this too with opportunities that people have had that they just haven't grabbed it because of how they are managing their energy and their time, and their mental energy. So this is it. Like if you invest in yourself, everyone wins.
Sure.
And we've also seen it in the community, like people coming in, working in corporate, saying, oh, I need to leave my job. It's killing me. It's sucking the life out of me. I'm not spending any time with my kids, doing this work, and then being like, I didn't have to leave my job. I feel better than I've ever felt in my entire life. I've figured out how to negotiate my schedule where I never thought that was possible because I work for like a very like, high controlling situation, but I had the courage and skills and support to know how to negotiate. And then and I got bonuses, and I got like all these things, and I'm like, if you think that change is not possible, you will attract more of that in your life. But if you're like, I'm done feeling like shit, I'm done feeling stuck, I'm done pretending that I'm okay when I'm not okay, like this stuff, it doesn't matter if it's happening at home or in your job, it's the same shit. Like everything that you're talking about here, Jessica, you've learned kind of by osmosis, but also me just challenging you that like I have standards. You have to rise to my standards. I want the people on my team. And some of the people on the team challenge me, and I'm like, shit, I gotta up my standards for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always growth.
Yeah.
Always. Always. Um, that's it.
Do I get a gold? Do I
Thank
get
you.
a gold star for this?
Jeez, you're so needy. I'm just kidding. I will give you a gold star.
Thank you.
Tiny backpack vibes all the
It's
way.
the revolution. It's taking over. Honey
Right.
backpack revolution.
So where can people go if they are like, damn, I need some help with my team? What should they do, Jessica? Let's see if you give them the right URL. This is a
This
test.
is a test, and this is not one that I will pass. This is not.
Perfect.
This is not my wheelhouse, but I will leave it for you.
Exactly. You have your lane of expertise. Good job.
Thank you.
Another gold star. So, if you're listening to this, you are a founder or you are a number two or a team member for somebody, and you're like, I need help. I really want to support my visionary. Or you are the visionary and you're like, I need help. There's multiple ways you can do this, but you can go to Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/mastery. You can check out our programs, Mastery Business. And if you're like, I don't know what program I need, you can book a call with someone on the team. You can go to heatherchauvin.com/schedule. You can even email us, hello, HELLO, at heatherchauvin.com. My last name is spelled CHAUVIN. You really have no excuse. We are our own worst critic, and we're the one that gets in the way and bottlenecks ourselves. And it's all just fear of, what if, what if, what if. But on the other side of fear, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah. We're just like personal trainers for your fear. You're
Ooh, I like
right.
that.
You're gonna pick up the weight, and you're gonna be like, I can't do this, but we're there behind you. We're spotting your squat, your back squats.
Mm-hmm.
We're there. We're helping you lift that extra 5 pounds a couple more times. And it brings us so much joy. I love working with team. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
the thing I've heard the most from team is like, thank you for making me feel like someone understands. Like it's just nice to connect with somebody who's like in the same arena that you are, that gets it, that can sometimes stop those thoughts and like flip them around for you. And it's like a gift for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a gift to others. Like
100%.
I literally show up for everybody else but myself. Like people are like, how do you spend so much time doing this and this and this? I'm like, I literally live to serve other people. I have to, quote unquote, take care of myself.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not going to be dramatic, but so I don't die. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I'm like, don't die physically, don't die mentally, don't die emotionally or spiritually, because the more alive you become, that's how we make a big impact in the
You're just
world.
doing it for Archie.
I was just going to say that too. I'm literally, I do this for your dog.
Yeah. And he's
Yeah.
sleeping.
Archie's a dog, if anyone is
He's
curious.
sleeping on the couch right now in a blanket that he pulled off the back because you created that life for him.
Perfect.
Yeah.
He's fucking
He
welcome.
is welcome. He pushed his brother out of the way when I went to buy him because he knew Heather Chauvin gave this girl a life that I want a part of.
100%.
He was like,
He's fucking welcome.
hip checked his brother out of the way.